Welcome back, everybody. It's Friday, July 19th, 2024. Let's talk about a different kind of industrial spill, the execution of an inmate, and a possible name for the Crimson Tide's football field. We have a guest on the show today. Environmental reporter Dennis Pillion will join us later. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. Folks have dealt with oil spills, sewage overflows, and gas leaks. In Bessemer recently, grease and animal fat ended up in a waterway. The report's AL.com's Dennis Pillion. Now, grease and animal fat is my favorite combo meal at the drive-thru, by the way, but this was a spill at a BHT Resources rendering plant. That's where they use grease and fat to make animal feed, recycled cooking oil, and other things. Now, you might have seen their black grease containers behind restaurants. Alabama Department of Environmental Management External Affairs Chief Lynn Battle said that contractors on BHT's dime have been able to remove most of the stuff from Valley Creek, which flows into the Black Warrior River. Battle also said they have not seen any negative effects on wildlife. Black Warrior River keeper Nelson Brook said it looks like material poured out of wastewater ponds that are located next to the creek. Now, I mentioned that Dennis Pillion reported this story. He's the environmental reporter with AL.com. Later on, we have him on the show to talk about the work he's done here and to take our review quiz. The state of Alabama executed Keith Edmund Gavin Thursday evening after the U.S. Supreme Court turned down his handwritten appeal over filing fees, reports AL.com's Kent Falk and Ivana Rinke. Gavin was executed by lethal injection. He was convicted of capital murder in the Cherokee County shooting death of William Clayton Jr. in 1998. Clayton was at an ATM to withdraw money to take his wife out to dinner when Gavin shot him dead. At the time, Gavin was out on parole for a murder in Illinois. Gavin also shot at a law enforcement officer while he was trying to get away. A committee for the University of Alabama system is meeting today to consider what some sources are saying would be a name for the field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, reports AL.com's Nick Kelly. The Honorary Degrees and Recognition Committee listed in its agenda, quote, the consideration of resolution approving a naming at Bryant-Denny Stadium at UA. Now, those sources are saying it'll be Nick Saban Field, according to Kelly. Check AL.com/Alabama football today to see whether that went through and whether the Tide will open its season August 31st against Western Kentucky on Nick Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I hope y'all stay with us. We'll be right back with Dennis Pillion. Hello, my fellow Alabamians. I want to take a quick break to talk about something that I know y'all are into because you listen to this podcast, the role of news in your daily routine. Well, starting off the day informed is a long-held practice that started with newspapers and coffee and has evolved to podcasts like this one and driving to work. But if you miss the feeling of sitting down with in-depth local reporting, consider subscribing to the Huntsville Times, Birmingham News, or Mobile Press Register digital editions. By subscribing, you'll get a new daily digital edition in an email link, or you can use an app to download the new edition every day on your smartphone or tablet. You also get exclusive access to stories written for our subscribers. Down in Alabama, listeners get your first month free by going to al.com/digital subscription/exclusive and enter the promo code DIA24. Down in Alabama 24. You get that. It's just $10 a month after that to support the reporting that changes laws and lives in our state. Thank you for your support. And now back to the podcast. Well, thanks everybody for staying with us. Today's Friday, so we usually do a news quiz on Friday with usually with a reporter. Today, it's a little bit of a bigger occasion. AL.com's Dennis Pillion is with us. He's the has been the environmental reporter at AL.com for about 10 years, I think. Is that right, Dennis?
9 years, but we can round up.
While you've been doing conservation, environmental type stuff for 9 years, rounded up to 10. You go back farther than that with the site.
That's right.
You want to tell us about your
Yeah, I've been with the company for 17 years now. I actually started in the sports department, worked for about 5 years there from 2007 to 2012, which was an exciting time to be in the sports department here at AL.com. A lot of good stuff going on there. And
yes.
then I got to go. They created a new position called the Beaches Reporter that I volunteered for. So I moved down to Gulf Shores and lived there for about 2 years to report on all of the comings and goings and happenings on Alabama beaches and the Florida Panhandle. And after
Yeah,
about 3 years of that, we decided that that was too much fun. So I decided to come back to Birmingham and do full time environmental reporting.
I'm sure that it looked a whole lot more fun from the reader perspective than necessarily the work perspective. I know from experience that sports, it's you're working, and I know you're talking about the beaches also. I never miss a chance to say this, and I offend some people who didn't start out in sports, but folks who start out in sports are some of the best journalists, reporters, editors that I've ever been around. And I say that because I'm from sports, and I have so much respect for every sports editor I've had over the years. So I think that's how we knew that we had a good one and kept you around and put you on a pretty important beat here. I mean, you've won Alabama Press Association awards and Green Eye Shade awards, um, doing important work, educating us on some issues and some fun learning stuff too. I just thought if it's okay with you, I was going to bring up a few stories and projects that you've done, maybe get you to comment on them, and would you just to remember. I think readers will say, "Hey, I remember when that came up." I think it'll be a fun exercise. So if you don't mind, I'm probably going to forget
Uh,
some of your
that's okay.
favorites.
Let's do it. I'm sure you'll get the
So
highlights.
jump in here if I'm missing anything big time. There were the septic problems. I said were there are the septic problems in the Black Belt. We've seen interest from officials and some money moved. Where do we stand on that issue?
Yeah, that's still very much present tense. There's, I think the situation is as optimistic as you can be about it in the past 30 years. Over the past 5, even 10 years, there's been a lot of attention being paid to that. A lot of people from across the country are really looking down and saying, why do these conditions still exist in the United States of America? Where people are having to walk around in raw sewage, where they don't have septic systems or waste management systems that work. Um, it's a difficult issue because there's a lot of challenges, both from a money perspective, from a technical perspective. The soil down there, it's very heavy, and water doesn't percolate down into it very well. So a lot of septic systems down there are hit or miss. And the area is just too rural for these big sewer lines like we have here in Birmingham. So it's been some trial and error, some you know trying out different things to try and find that kind of a Goldilocks system that might work in that area. There are some prototypes that now are being put into operation down there. So hopefully those prototypes will work and will be feasible to expand out to more of the rest of the Black Belt.
Another story that I remember after quite a while, it has stuck with me almost every time I've done a load of laundry is the microplastics that now first of all let me use the attention getter. This isn't word for word. Next time you eat a piece of seafood, you're also eating some very tiny bits of somebody's gym shorts.
Yeah, that
That was a fun exercise, I'll bet.
Yeah, it was. This is one of those areas where we're really just kind of starting to figure out what the impacts are of just this modern life that we've created. A lot of these synthetic fibers that we use, they're made to be durable and they're made to last, but that means they last. They don't really break down. So when you wash a shirt that's made of something, like a non-natural fiber, then little pieces of it are gonna flake off. They're gonna go down the drain, and a lot of these, they're called microplastics. They're so small, they don't, they make it through the filtration, they make it through all that, and they end up in the rivers and then in the Gulf of Mexico. So, and
Yeah, I'm
it's not nice to think about, but it's a good reminder. There are some steps that people can take to reduce the amount of microplastics that they're putting out there. And again, it's not all just from clothing too. A lot of it is just from plastic trash that gets thrown in the river or thrown wherever. That stuff, it breaks down into smaller pieces. It doesn't, the plastic itself doesn't actually disintegrate. The story you're talking about, what I did was I bought one of those little in-home filters and hooked it up to my washing machine that was supposed to catch more of those microplastics before they get into the wastewater system. So I tried that out for a couple of years, and you can see the results. Hopefully, it did some good. Maybe, I don't know.
well, you could tell it kind of stayed with me in my mind. I've tried to wear more cotton since I read that one. How about that? I've tried to do my part. You did several stories for, gosh, was it? I don't know how long it went on. The Moody landfill fire.
That is very much still kind of smoldering deep beneath the earth, and Mordor, Moody. Basically, the EPA and everyone else has said there are still these kind of smoldering embers under the ground. They've done what they can to cover it up, and they put a dirt cap on it and some turf, like you would do at a landfill. But every now and again, things are still smoldering down there. You'll have a little cave in, a little air will get in, a little smoke will escape, and the folks who live right around there are still very much dealing with that, the occasional smoke issues, and it's really made life tough for some of those folks.
I guess it's not that surprising considering you have a fire all day. You can get up the next morning and throw some straw on it, and it'll catch up a lot of times. But it's still amazing to think of for
Yeah.
something to be going on since early. When did it start?
It's been more than a year now for sure. It was Black Friday, so I guess that would have been Black Friday 2022, year and a half.
Wow. Yeah, that's in what
But I
a
mean, underground fires are. There's a coal mine in India, I believe, that's been on fire for close to 100 years. So weird things happen.
gosh. Well, that's amazing to think about. I'll go through a few of these quickly. You cover the colonial pipeline explosion, 2016, the coal ash holding ponds issue, another story in progress, preserving Chandler Mountain as it is when Alabama Power wanted to build a big pond and dams up there. And lo and behold, American Indian tribes came in and said there's sacred ground here too, which helps the locals. Um, the watercress darter, which to get personal about things, I used to live in Roebuck Springs, and I've bladed tee shots on number 10 at the local golf course. So many times into the water that I find it hard to sleep at night thinking of how many watercress darters
So, well,
died.
hopefully you didn't take out.
Any of that stick out to you? Anything you want to say about any of those? Anything particularly that you'll take away from this job?
Yeah, well, I think Colonial Pipeline. First there was a major leak um, that shut down the pipeline for several weeks, and that was before it exploded. That came a month or two later. I think that one, it really just kind of obviously it was a tragedy. Folks were killed, folks were injured in the explosion. I think environmentally it maybe wasn't as bad as it could have been because they were able to capture all of it. Where just because the leak happened to be at an old coal mine site that had all these detention ponds anyway. But I mean, for me, when I look back at it, I think that's just a reminder that all of these systems that we have in place that we never ever think about. We never think about how the gasoline gets from the ground to the refinery to the gas pump. Well, this is how it's a pipeline that runs just south of Birmingham, and you know when that one pipeline, when something happens to it, it can really throw a lot of things into chaos. And so I think that's just something that I try to be mindful of, that and not just focusing on the end result, this gasoline that comes out of the pump, this thing that you buy at Walmart. There's all those things. They were made, they were created, they were shipped, they were moved. There's a whole process that we just never ever have to even think about. But maybe
Mhm.
we should think about it a little bit. So that's there. And then on the
Yeah.
darters, you mentioned the watercress, but man, there's a ton of those fish all over Alabama, that are endangered or threatened or unique, that don't live anywhere else in the world. And we've said it a lot. I've probably said it here, but Alabama is such a unique place environmentally. We have beaches, we have the coastal plains, we have the rivers, we have the mountains. We have all these different ecosystems that come together, and all these different species that evolved in those very specific ecosystems. So that's why the watercress darter is only in these very small specific areas, because those were the conditions that it adapted to. And we're one of the most biologically diverse states in the country. I think Hawaii has us beat, but that's a little bit of a different animal there. Um,
Yeah, no doubt.
it's always great to reminder that, just not to take things for granted, right? Like these, I know I grew up
Yeah.
here. I love going out in the woods and playing in the creeks and the streams, and that's great. But these are also very important places ecologically, and when you back up and look at the whole systems, it's a pretty crucial role.
Yeah, from Lookout Mountain to Mobile Bay. What a what a lot that we offer folks. And speaking of the mountains, one of my this might be my favorite thing um, that you did was a series called Ancient Alabama, and I think during the pandemic is when that came out, which is a great time to have a series that people can read. Uh, you did like Alabama's history before history, with way back yonder stuff, and dinosaurs and the mountain ranges that would make a Tibetan monk nervous. Tell me
Yeah,
about that. That had to be fun. You had to learn a lot from
I'd say
that too as
I
you did
think
it.
that's probably the highlight of my time at AL.com. That's probably the thing that I'm the most proud of in my 17 years here. And and like you said, it just kind of started during the pandemic. It's like, well, what can we do? And it was actually a lot of the inspiration came from a book called Lost Worlds and Alabama Rocks by Jim Lacefield. And he really goes through there, and I talked to him. I used him as a source for a lot of the stories. But the geological history of Alabama is amazing. Like you said, Alabama used to have mountains that were taller than the Himalayas are now, like much taller than Everest. Alabama at one point in
Incredible.
geologic time was located around the South Pole. So if you think we're southern now, we used to be really southern, and we've just been drifting north. We had dinosaurs, we had meteorite strikes. In the 84 million years ago, in Wetumpka, we had the big meteor hit. It was We were underwater at that point, but that was still pretty cool. You can still see the crater.
That's amazing. I would suggest anyone who hasn't seen those stories go find them and read them. And as I'm talking, I'm going to Google um, Ancient Alabama, Dennis Pillion. Those are good search terms. Oh, yeah. And it's the second thing. al.com/topic/ancient Alabama /posts. So that's not the most friendly URL. So you can Google ancient Alabama Dennis Pillion and find that. I would highly recommend it. Dennis, when's your last day? Do you have anything else coming for us? Or are you still working hard, or are you short timer? What's going
I
on?
wasn't going to, but things kept happening. So, no, I will be here through the 26th, which is next Friday. Got a couple other stories in the works between now and then, including a partnership piece that we're working with some of our other advanced local media, our corporate brothers and sisters in New Jersey and Oregon and Michigan, kind of looking at climate change, at particularly what we're seeing now is water temperatures going up, and that's happening off the Atlantic coast and the Pacific and in the Gulf of Mexico. So we're kind of looking at what impacts we're seeing already because of that. Down here in Alabama, that's all of a sudden we're getting snook. People are catching snook down in actually Perdido Bay, which that used to be like to go south of Tampa if you want to catch it. But now all of a sudden we're starting to get them here. We're starting to get like mangrove snapper and even like parrotfish and stuff like that we never used to get before. But now because of the change in the water temperature, we're starting to get those here. And we're looking at just really talk to a lot of fishermen, talk to the researchers who are studying this stuff, and just kind of say, hey, how are things changing? Like, what are we actually seeing? We see by the thermometers that temperatures are getting warmer, but then what impacts are we seeing to the wildlife, to the species that people are catching, and what fishermen can target and all that kind of stuff.
Will it help us replenish our oyster population? I'm making light of a serious topic, but I'm
Unfortunately,
always wanting to look out for that.
it will do the exact opposite. I
Oh,
know
that's not good.
there's a one of the people I talked to was Sean Powers. He runs the environmental studies program down at South Alabama at Dauphin Island Sea Lab, and they've basically this year put out a research paper that says that the more extreme heat days we have, and we had a lot of them last year, where temperatures were over 100 degrees, where even water temperatures were up over 90 degrees in some cases. And basically, what they've found is that when we have a heat wave, like a prolonged stretch of those really, really hot days, then the oyster reproduction just goes way down. That's a bummer. And there is, it takes an oyster about 2 years to grow to be harvestable size. So it's next year looking like it might be a rough one for the oysters.
Dennis, you're bumming me out now. That's part of the job, though,
Yeah,
right?
it happens a surprising amount.
Tell us where you're going. What's your next gig?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little break, a little time to, not work for a minute, but I will be starting in August as a reporter at Inside Climate News, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan environmental journalism shop. I'll still be here in Alabama covering some of the same things that I have been doing at AL.com, and we may even find a way to get some of my stories to continue to appear on AL.com. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, good luck to you. I love to hear it. Congratulations. And, way to take all that time off between jobs and start next month.
Well, yeah, I'm taking a week. So.
Isn't it nice to live that kind of
Yeah,
life?
I get.
The
I know.
life of
I'm
luxury.
taking a week off, and I only have 14 days worth of projects around the house to knock out. So we'll see how that goes.
Let's get on to this quiz. All right. We're going to go to question number 1. What event is not taking place this weekend? A, the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo. B, the George Washington Carver Peanut Hulling Contest at the Floribama. C, Rock the South in Coleman. Or D, the Back to School Alabama Sales Tax Holiday.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know for sure 2 of those things are happening. So, of course, the deep sea fishing rodeo. I know for a fact that's going on.
Yeah.
The sales tax one,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's this weekend. So it's down to read me the other two choices again.
The George Washington Carver Peanut Hulling Contest at the Floribama and Rock the South in Coleman.
I have spent a fair amount of time at the Floribama over the years and never heard of a peanut hulling contest. So I'll go with that one.
You are correct. I totally made that up.
Okay.
And, I put George Washington Carver in there for a good, solid Alabama reference in addition to the
I didn't know
Floribama.
he spent time at the Floribama. But...
Question number 2. 3 of Alabama's Winn-Dixie locations have been identified to be converted into this grocery chain that recently purchased the Winn-Dixie stores and brand. A, Kroger, B, Publix, C, Aldi, or D, Jitney Jungle.
All right. Yeah, I do know this one. I have a soft spot for Aldi in my heart. So
you are correct. That's 2 for 2 so far. There are no more Jitney Jungles, by the way.
I wasn't sure that was a real thing. I thought you might have made it up like the Peanut Festival.
That was in Mississippi, and I'm not sure how far beyond that one was. Question number 3. This Alabama city's council recently passed a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. A, Huntsville, B, Birmingham, C, Montgomery, or D, Phil Campbell.
I'd be interested to know Phil Campbell's thoughts on it, but I remember seeing that story. I think it's Birmingham.
You got it right. You're kind of running away with this. I think you went and studied, boned up in the last few minutes.
You're just in my wheelhouse with Aldi and the Floribama.
Recently, Peter Buxton passed away at 86. He never lived in Alabama as far as we know, but he played this role in our state's history. A, whistleblower on the Tuskegee syphilis study. B, advisor for George Wallace, who performed CPR on the former governor after he was shot. C, starred as Albert Patterson in the Phoenix City Story. Or D, as a freshman at the University of Oregon, became the first known football game attendee to hold up a sign that said, "Beat Bama."
Oh, man. The Beat Bama was a good one, but being as my wife was a master's in public health, she would be very upset if I did not know that he was the whistleblower for the Tuskegee study.
This is like you made the quiz. I can't believe this.
It's because I listen to your show every day. I know what's going on.
Okay, for question number 5, which 2 teams did Nick Saban pick to reach the SEC championship game in his new role as an ESPN college football analyst? A, Alabama and Georgia. B, Georgia and Texas. C, Texas and Oklahoma. Or D, Tennessee and LSU.
Well, as a University of Alabama graduate, I'm going to say that I hope he was wrong when he predicted Texas and Georgia.
You're absolutely right. It's like this was crafted for you. And by the way, LSU and Tennessee was the joke answer for that last question. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the quiz and performing so well on it. Clearly studying ahead of time so that you could do well on this quiz. This should show people, if you're listening down in Alabama every day, you don't miss much. Thanks, everybody, for listening to us. We are going to be back here bright and early Monday morning. Until then, come by anytime you want to see what we're doing on the internet at al.com.